to Senate Bill 27.
Senate Bill 27 by Senators Smallwood and Todd, also Representatives Kraft-Tharp and McKean, concerning the enactment of the Enhanced Nurse Licensure Compact and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 27. There are no committee reports.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Members, I'm here today to ask for your support to pass Senate Bill 27, the Enhanced Nurse Licensure Compact Bill. As you may be aware, the legislature in 2006 passed Senate Bill 620, allowing the Colorado State Board of Nursing to enter into the Multi-State Nurse Licensure Compact. The original compact was an agreement between 25 states to allow a nurse with a multi-state license to practice in other nurse licensure compact states. This current compact has been operational and successful for more than 17 years. Senate Bill 18-27 would allow Colorado nurses to maintain their multi-state license and join the Enhanced Nurse Licensure Compact. I ask for your support.
Members, I'm having a hard time actually hearing what's going on at the well. If you could take your conversations to the side. Representative McKean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also ask for a yes vote. And folks, I will tell you this. You know that I get up infrequently to tell you a little something you might need to know. But every single one of you probably has a story about nurses that has either touched your lives or your hearts. There are rare times when a bill like this is a bill that we can get on where you get to do something that maybe you have had an experience with that leads to this. So I have two children. I have Hannah, who is 18. I have Aiden, who is 17. But before Hannah was born, we had another daughter. That daughter had a heart defect that required surgery. So we found the best surgeon in this country to go get that heart defect fixed. And we moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan, to find that surgeon that could do that work. My daughter was the healthiest child you have ever seen, 9 pounds, 10 ounces. But because of her heart condition, she had to be in a NICU, in a neonatal ICU. You will never in your life find nurses that care more, that do more, that know more. And if I could encourage any of you guys to just pick up your feet one day and go down to Children's and ask to see the NICU, you will be in awe of what nurses do. This bill will allow the nurses in this state to practice in other states, will allow nurses from other states to practice in this state, will allow the kind of care that we expect for the citizens of Colorado, and the kind of care that my daughter, Celia Volstein McKean, got back in 1997. We had her for 5 wonderful days. She is a part of our family, but the nurses that we had, I am in awe of to this day. So when you vote on this, you're not just voting for a legal process to do these things. You are voting for the very care that we expect for all of our sons and daughters, all of our parents, all of our brothers and sisters. This is a yes vote. It's not only a yes vote, it's a hell yes vote, because this is something we need to do.
Is there any further discussion of Senate Bill 27? Representative Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, sponsors, for bringing this bill. This is an important bill, and I think, if not unanimity in this chamber, I think there is broad, vigorous, and emotional support. I think we just heard a very telling story of why this bill is so important. And I am grateful for that, and I am grateful that this bill will advance to the other chamber. Having said that, I think it is important that we always consider the policy implications. We consider what we do that creates consequences that move on beyond where we are. I noticed in looking at the fiscal note earlier today that we are creating an additional 3.3 FTEs into this process. And my question is a question of the sponsors. Would it be possible to do the important work of the people of Colorado within the existing structures that exist, when we are struggling to find money anywhere we can find money to do other important policy initiatives? Could we in fact find ways to challenge this department to find efficiencies, to find ways to do this without expanding additional individuals into the state payroll.
Representative McKean.
Well, thank you, Representative Lundin, and thank you for that question. And I will tell you this. I think that your question is appropriate. I think that the question that was asked by Representative Becker in committee was not only appropriate, but it was telling, the answer that we received. So he asked, isn't there a way, especially for the Department of Law, to not add a half an FTE, but to actually do this with the existing staff they have? And the answer that we got from the fiscal analyst was exactly the answer I think that she should have given us, which is we don't look at the efficiency of the departments, we look at what manpower it will take to do this work. I think that's a policy question for this body going forward, that we probably need to take a look at. Are we being efficient? Are we being rational with the kinds of expenses that we incur and with the demands that we ask of our staff? And I think it's a fair question to ask in the process at some point, to ask the Department of Law, can you do this with existing resources? And I think it's a fair question to expect a rational, reasonable answer. That said, our process right now is that JBC takes a look at this, our fiscal analyst looks at it. It is not to determine the efficiency of the Department of Law, but to, in a cash-funded program, to make sure that we are charging enough as a fee to cover the manpower it should require. Does that suit you, sir?
Is there any other discussion? Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have one question, but now I've got another question, Representative McKean.
Yes, sir.
Along that line, since I wasn't in on the committee discussion, what was there in this bill that increases the workload? They had their certificates before, they have them now. We're not talking about a large influx of other nurses. What caused that increase? That would be my first question.
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you. So thank you, Representative Wilson. That was not quite what I was thinking that you were going to ask, but that's a good question. So in Colorado, we have approximately 90,000 nurses, including some of the nurses right up here that are here today. And what we need to do is, for those nurses that were not part of that that compact, we need to transition them onto the compact. So we also need to be able to provide the fingerprinting for the nurses, so, and then be able to do the paperwork so we can grandfather in all the nurses that were part of the old compact. So that's some of the work duties, that the enhanced work duties that we need to do.
Representative McKean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to add to that, so we'll have new nurses coming on. As new nurses are licensed, that's some of the workload. But you ask a specific question, I think, about why the workload may be for the Department of Law, for the Attorney General's office. So the note in our fiscal note is this, that 4% of those people flagged in their background checks will require adjudication by the Department of Law. So they're assuming that if people don't pass the background check, there will be work required to go through, either demonstrating why they didn't pass it or indicating to people how they can clean up what they need to make sure they do. So that is work expected by the Department of Law. Does that make sense?
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you. And let me clarify that according to this fiscal note and the fiscal analyst and the JBC staff, this is not like we pass this and they're going to go out and hire another staff person. This is 880 hours, which is an allocation of the 0.5. So if they don't use that 880 hours, then they don't use the total allocation of 0.5 FTE. So let's be clear on that. And this is also not general fund, this is cash fund dollars. So this is, you know, what they're using. If they're not using it, then they won't have those hours.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both for that, which leads me to my second question, which is actually tied to that, which I did not know at first. And I'm sure many of you had the same situation in your districts. I happen to be one of the folks in a rural area that actually has a rural hospital in their county. And many of those nurses talked to me about, our administrator said, if you are on this compact and you have a license from out of state, you'd better get your Colorado license immediately, if not sooner, because as of Friday, that will no longer be valid and you won't be able to practice in the state of Colorado. So they rushed out, got their licenses, spent the money to do that, which maybe that's the money that they can use now to fund what we were talking about. But my question is, since they were told that they needed to do this, and now we're going to take action as a responsible body and take care of this, is there any recourse for those folks who actually got their license and paid the license fee, which actually now is not needed?
Representative McKean.
Well, thank you, Representative Wilson, and thank you, Mr. Chair. So really, I would suggest that that be a recourse with their employer. That was not advice sort of to you as a legislator, are you going to get it passed in time? It was their employer trying to make sure that their nurses could practice in this state. We are taking action. The license fees are not exorbitant, so I would suggest that they take it up with their employer, but we are not considering those isolated cases in this bill.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 27? Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you. So unfortunately, Representative Buckner is not here today. My intention was to invite Representative Buckner up here so that we could give her the recognition of all the work that she has done the last couple years around this compact and around this bill. So she's homesick. Hope she has a nurse to be able to help her. And if we could all say thank you to her. And with that, if we could ask for your support for this important issue. Remember, healthcare does not stop at state lines. And we need our nursing staff to not stop at state lines also. Thank you.
Representative McKean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just as a close-up, thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening to us. I know that this is irregular, and truly thank you to Representative Buckner for carrying this for so long, and then really doing all that preliminary work so that this year, I think we get this done, we get it out, we get the governor to sign this by Friday, and we have done our job. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on Senate Bill 27? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 27. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 27 is adopted.